Welcome to episode 20 of the True Shoots podcast. I am Danny Kino, the one and only, and James Boisits, host of the JB podcast, has once again graced us with his presence. Glad to have you back on the
Thanks.
podcast.
Thanks, man. Grace with the presence. Like it.
So, DeMar DeRozan plays for the Bulls, and they suck really bad. It's clearly time for them to rebuild, and DeRozan has named the Knicks as one of his preferred destinations. So really the question is, should the Knicks even consider this? I saw a hypothetical trade on Twitter, and the trade goes as Fournier, who doesn't play, but we have him on our bench for some reason, Quentin Grimes, two 2024 protected first-round picks that we have via Detroit and Washington, and we get DeRozan, and that's it. What are your thoughts on this trade? DeMar DeRozan, obviously, probably going to get moved at some point. What are your thoughts on a Knicks trade for DeMar DeRozan?
Kind of complicated because I do think like there's a real like you were telling me like is there a better fit for him than the Knicks? I honestly don't even know. I don't even he's such a weird player in today's NBA to fit around. I also wonder if him going there diminishes Julius Randle. Julius Randle to me looks like somebody who struggles to share the ball with people. I think Jalen Brunson is just a really exceptional, smart basketball player. If the Knicks do that, I think there's a shot that they're better, but I don't know if it raises their ceiling enough.
I've mulled this over, and I've decided it really depends on the package. DeRozan's a free agent next summer, and the Bulls are going to want assets, which the Knicks have, but is it worth it really giving it up for DeRozan? I don't think he makes us that much better, and not enough to give us real assets for him. And especially if it's a rental, he can walk into the season if he wants, go to LA, which is where I think he really wants to go. But Miami and New York is what he's named, of course, to the reports. And those are places that I think could use him. Miami could definitely use him, even though he's kind of similar of a player as Jimmy Butler in terms of offensively.
At the end of the day, if I'm really thinking it over, if I don't have to give up much and maybe because the Knicks are 12-7 right now, like they're not playing bad basketball. It's not like they need like this boost necessarily. And, but if you get DeMar DeRozan, you're kind of getting a big three of third stars or like, you know what I mean? Like it's a big three of third stars that they're not getting DeRozan doesn't make them necessarily better than Philly to me or Milwaukee, Boston. Heck, I don't even know. Considering how well Miami's playing, got to consider that too. I just think with Brunson there, that's another thing. Brunson likes the ball in his hands. DeRozan can play in that isolation style. He did it a lot in Toronto. I just don't know. Like that would be such an old Knicks thing to do. You know what I mean? Like
It would, yeah.
trade for DeMar DeRozan. Like I would have liked it better maybe if it was last season. Like if there was like they were kind of running into the stalemate where they were around 500 and before they went on that run, and it's like, okay, we need to juice up something a little bit. Hey, we don't have to give up much. Let's maybe get a wing score like DeMar DeRozan. Let's see how we do. But we've seen the Knicks have success with Brunson and Randall and the role players that they have, that defensive personality. DeRozan's not a great defender. So I probably would lean no.
DeRozan definitely gives us scoring. He's averaging 22 points per game. You know, he's an isolation shot creator that's really good, even in this older part of his career. But the real problem with the Knicks is the flow of their offense. And that's why so many people have a problem with Julius Randle, because even though he leads the team in assist, anytime the ball's in his hand, it feels like everything stops. And we kind of wait to see what he does. And when, he all NBA last year, of course, 25 points per game, he gives you that. But when he doesn't, it feels like he's just hurting your team. And that's most Knicks fans gripe with Randle.
As long as it doesn't prevent them from possibly getting a number one guy. But it could be your backup plan for possibly getting rid of Randle. Maybe you get DeRozan in there and you pair him with Brunson, and then you find another suitor for it. Makes you it makes it feel better trading Julius Randle for not desirable pieces, just all right pieces.
Yeah.
If you really need to get rid of him, maybe trading for DeRozan makes that go down a little easier for you.
Having 3, now 4, if you count Barrett, shot creators. Brunson's really the only one shooting well from 3 this season. That's a hard mix, especially with the Knicks, who struggle to move the ball and flow offensively anyway. We're one of the lowest scoring teams in the NBA as it is. So yeah, DeMar DeRozan brings scoring, but is it worth bringing in a half-season rental, assuming this gets done by the deadline, to just push us a little further and we still end up losing to Boston or Milwaukee in the playoffs? Unless, like you mentioned, it facilitates another deal if we were to move off Randall, which I don't know if it's going to happen. I just don't know if this front office is, going to move Randall while Tom Thibodeau is the coach.
So that's the only way this makes sense to me. Because, I think Embiid is still possible. I know Philly looks good, but who knows? If Philly isn't as good as we think they are to start this season, and Embiid's like, I'm sick of losing in the second round. I want out. I want a new place. Trading for DeRozan, and this is obviously considering not giving up that much, and trading for DeRozan and having Brunson and DeRozan and Embiid, that makes sense. It kind of makes more sense as an offseason thing, but you can't sign DeRozan. So Brunson, DeRozan, Randall, but Brunson, DeRozan, and that number one guy makes a lot more sense to me, because I don't think Randall can coexist with any number one guy, because his production, a lot of it is having the ball all the time. And you're only going to go so far with him there. So he serves a purpose. But if you hit a wall and you're like, okay, let's trade, we can get very little for DeRozan. Let's get him in here. Now we have Brunson, DeRozan, Randall. If this year doesn't work out, because we don't think we're winning a championship anyway this year, all right, we'll move off of Randall. We'll keep DeRozan. We still have a lot of picks. We still have young pieces to where we can move to possibly get that number one guy or entice someone to come in as that number one guy.
I like that, actually. I didn't really consider it that far.
I think I'm talking myself into it as
you kind of
talking about it. Because I said I would lean no if they plan on keeping Julius Randle. But like I said before, keeping, it makes trading Randle for scraps, which, I'm not sure most NBA teams would. And I think DeRozan would like it in New York. I think he would, because I don't know if he's the best fit with the Lakers. The Clippers are a mess. So I'm sure he would love to play for the Lakers, but I don't see him and LeBron as I think that's weird, no?
Not being a shooter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think he can get away with that slightly with the Knicks, because the Knicks aren't a good shooting team anyway. So they still find ways to win games. And he's so elite at the mid-range that maybe it's okay. But Tom Thibodeau is going to have to find a way to kind of share the sugar a little bit with these guys.
And that's kind of where we all are as a fan base, like the Knicks. We know this team is good. We know Brunson's really good. But as long as we have Randall as our number one, there's only so far we will go. And I think a lot of people, we're coming around to Tibbs. We understand this is who he is. I think if we had, Brunson doesn't average a lot of assists, and that's probably the biggest criticism he gets, that he's just kind of a shooter, meaning he just shoots the ball mostly. He's not really looking to pass. Like I mentioned, Randall leads us in assists. We're bottom in the league in assists. I mentioned it when we were talking the other day. We have been under Tibbs the past, this is the year 5 now. That is our biggest problem, I think, offensively. Randall is part of that. If you got rid of Randall, depending on who you bring in, that needs to be fixed. DeMar DeRozan doesn't fix that. He's averaging 5 assists a game, I think.
And I talked about this in my Knicks video. It feels like the Knicks, even though they're good, and let me just say this too, as a Knicks fan, there's nothing wrong with just being a playoff team every year, because you haven't had that. As
That's
Knicks
true.
fans, you guys, there's nothing wrong. Sometimes you can't get too greedy. It's okay, let's let's kind of find this peace of mind of being playoff competitive every single year. You're not the Yankees where you expect to like win the World Series every year,
True.
you
Yeah.
know, like getting to the playoffs, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's important to be patient. However, I think we see now there's concerns about the ceiling of this team in regards to like, we've never seen Tom Thibodeau go all the way to the finals. We've seen him be the assistant coach of a finals team, kind of like be the defensive mastermind to that Celtics squad. That's about it. Chicago, there was a ceiling with them. He's had playoff success. It seems like there seems to be a ceiling with Tibbs, though, because he has been coaching for over a decade. And there seems to be a ceiling with Randall that, like, there's no way we can go past the second round with this guy. However, DeRozan doesn't really fix that. So it's really just, okay, we know this isn't working in regards to like being an NBA championship team. We don't really see a path with Randall. But like I said before, like DeRozan, bring him in and give Randall one more shot at possibly being a good postseason player. Because sometimes it takes that third opportunity to be that postseason guy. He's still valued. Like the Knicks need him to win games.
Mhm.
So give him one more shot. And if you have DeRozan in there, you're better. I think there's a real shot that you're better. There's a shot you're worse, but I think there's also a real shot that you're better, especially if you're just replacing Quentin Grimes and, maybe a pick or two, right? Protected. So there's a chance you're better, but DeRozan's not a great playoff performer either. So that's also something to take into account. But it gives you one more shot with Rand. Okay, this is it for you, Julius. Like, give me a good postseason here. If you're not giving me a good postseason, then we got to heavily consider your place on this team. And we have DeRozan to back, as a backup plan. And then it still leaves us on a trail. We can get that number one guy, slide him in with Brunson and DeRozan. We can move forward. So now I actually think I like it.
I'm thinking about like I think if the package is not huge, which it wouldn't be because of his contract,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm willing to, take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it costs us too much in terms of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And because our future relies on our decision on Julius Randle anyway. So
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan, I feel like it's not high risk, but it can also be high reward. He can actually boost us a little more. Maybe we can push one of those teams and maybe beat them, but who knows?
This is why talking to somebody is important, because I just started with, I don't really like it. And now I like, oh,
exactly. Like when
I
I
think
saw
about it,
it on Twitter, I was like, nah, I was like, saying it. And a good amount of Knicks fans are actually for it. They're like, you know what? For that hypothetical trade, sure. Fournier's not playing anyway. Grimes doesn't give us like a huge amount. He's a good defender. I'll give him that. Why not? DeMar DeRozan's 20-point per game scorer. You can go to him in big moments. Why not?
Like, what's wrong with just being like good? Like, I'd rather be that, but still have a vision of getting better in the future than just being bad and tanking and having that losing stench. I don't like that. So there's nothing wrong with just being good. And if I was a Knicks fan, I'd be like, I'm cool with just watching Brunson. Like, let Brunson do his thing. Like, and DeRozan would help you guys still be good.
Now to go to another team that's really struggling as of late, the Warriors. They're 9-11 on the season. Back-to-back blown 20-point losses, one to the Kings, then the other night to the Clippers. They also blew an 18-point lead to Oklahoma City, I believe, a few weeks ago. So there's a lot going on with the Warriors, a lot of issues here. You have Draymond and his aggressiveness and his issues, got himself suspended for 5 games. He's back now. But I think their biggest issue right now is Klay Thompson, because Klay is not playing up to what we expect from him. That could just be his age, the injuries, just him not being the same player he used to be. But his shot selection is the same and his usage is the same. And they're relying on him the same. And if he's not giving you that production, you're in trouble because they don't have a lot of offensive production anyway. It's a lot of Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson. They don't get a lot of offense off their bench. Dario Saric has been good. Draymond and Kevin Looney aren't scorers. You traded Jordan Poole away. He was a 20-point per game scorer. Got in Chris Paul, who's injured right now. So he's not even giving you much. You're relying still on Kuminga and Moses Moody, who haven't really taken the steps that they expected. of their young stars, you're not getting a lot of offense. And you got Curry still averaging 30 points per game, still an elite scorer. He's had some trouble in clutch situations. They're 2-4 in close games this season, but they're really struggling right now. And we kind of expected them to still be in the mix in the West, and they have been nothing like that so far.
I think the Jordan Poole trade needed to happen. I think it wasn't a bad thing because I think, well, I mean, it was probably, yeah, you're losing a young, possibly talented guy, but I'm not watching Jordan Poole in Washington and being
Oh
like,
my God. I mean,
like a huge loss for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
He's putting up the numbers, but I don't know, man. I never was like this huge Jordan Poole guy. I thought he was overrated instantly when honestly he started playing well for Golden State. Like people were thinking like, oh, next Klay Thompson replacement. I was like, ugh. But I think it's just got a lot of stuff going on. And this is what happens, man, when you're this good for so long and you have like all these expectations, like eventually it does die down. I think it's insane that they won 2 years ago. I did not have them beating Boston.
Yes.
I think the reason why they beat Boston is just because Steph Curry is maybe the greatest point guard ever. One of them. I mean, definitely second. I know a lot of people have Magic over at number one. I just think I think that's the reason why they won. Like, I think that's Steph's like signature playoff moment right there. That's the reason why they won that game, that series. At what point can we just say Draymond Green's just an asshole and is selfish?
I don't know why we can't.
Listen, man. And before I keep going, because I know that sounds very disrespectful, I respect the hell out of Draymond. I think like Draymond, a lot of people think they look at his numbers and they're like, that's all he provides. But it's also important not to overrate what he provides because he's very important to this team, but it's not like when Steph was injured that first year, like that KD wasn't on the team, like when Russell was there, Draymond checked out. Like he was just like, he was awful that year. And then Steph comes back. They're a little bit different, right? But he gets kicked out of games where they need him. He's getting suspended. Like that Rudy Gobert thing. Like, what's he doing? Like, how do you defend that? Just be like, oh, sorry. Listen, I didn't mean to have it run his. Dude, you're literally choking him. Gobert's like, you're choking me. Like, stop. I thought what Kenny Smith said on Inside the NBA was hit it on the head. He's like, listen, you're a 30-year-old something. You're not like a young kid anymore. Like, stop freaking saying like you're sorry. Like, I'm sorry. No, you're just being an asshole. Like, stop. Like, why are you being this dick? Like, seriously, I'm not trying to like excuse my language, but this is just the truth. That's what Draymond's being. And then he'll give every excuse in the book. He's like, oh, that's just the way he is. It's just like, all right, well, that was probably the reason why you lost in 2016 when you couldn't control your emotions against LeBron. You stepped on Sabonis for no reason, almost cost you that series. I mean, they're just lucky that Steph is so good that he can bounce back by himself and get the Kings in that series. But the Klay thing's a real issue. It's still early. Sometimes with shooters, you just need some time to get going. Sometimes you're just off, especially with his age, coming off obviously a lot of big injuries. So we'll see. Not giving up on Golden State yet as like a playoff team. They're still, I think they're 11th right now, but they're not that far out of the play-in. A lot of people have them as a playing team. They haven't looked good. It's still early. They need Draymond to play and be controlled a little bit, just a little bit. And obviously you can't count out Steph. But it could just be this thing too, where like those guys have been playing for a long time together and Steve Kerr's been the coach there for a long time. And maybe this is the year, like, okay, like was last year just Jordan Poole and Draymond punching? Draymond punching Jordan Poole, was that the only thing that was wrong with the team last year? Wiggins, that's another thing I tried not to fall into, this whole Wiggins renaissance, where like Wiggins was great in that championship run. I knew who Andrew Wiggins was. I knew he wasn't that guy. I mean, come on. Did really when KD was on the trade market, people were like, oh, the Nets, Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins is too much for Kevin Durant. I'm like, yo, you guys got to chill. Like, you guys got to chill right now. Andrew Wiggins is not that guy. And Jordan Poole was overrated. This just happens with the Warrior fans, they overrate a lot of their guys. But are they a top 6 team still? At the moment, they don't look it. We'll see what happens with Clay, but I'm expecting Clay to improve as the year goes along, but he needs to be called out because he's also like giving excuses, and I don't like that.
He's doing this. And he's
You're not Tom Brady. You're not Kobe.
Yeah.
Like, stop. Like,
yeah,
he's good. We get it. But just acknowledge, yeah, I'm not playing that good. I got to be better, and boom, move along. But there's all this ego thing, like with the Warriors. Like, how dare you criticize us? And Steph doesn't do that, which is why I love Steph. But like with Draymond and Clay, like, do you have any idea how much your success is because Kevin Durant and Steph Curry were on your team for a while? I mean, come on now.
Yeah. I think another problem they do have is they've refused to address the problem they have, that they have no like other big other than Kevon Looney.
Yeah, they don't have a big.
I mean, Dario Saric has been good, but he's a stretch 4 that they play at center because they just don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
They drafted Wiseman, so they knew it was an issue. But Wiseman, he didn't play a lot. They didn't try and develop him too much. They traded him away. Not that he's turning heads in Detroit. He's actually barely plays.
And I'm going to defend small ball in this fashion. It's bad in the regular season, but in the playoffs and in tight games, championship games, you see small ball really help. Like Miami, very small team last year, but small ball helped them, right? Golden State versus Boston in the finals. Golden State was smaller than Boston. But we saw lineups where Golden State was really successful. Like, so I think small ball helps in the playoffs in many moments, but you have to have some way to get you through the regular season with your size. And Kevon Looney can't just be it.
Yeah, you're right. And with small ball, you need to make sure you have the scoring. Because
and Clay's not scoring.
And
Chris Paul's not a scorer.
Exactly. And you saw it in last year's playoffs. They tried to go small against the Lakers, and it worked for a little bit. It would definitely worked in game. They won game 2 and game 4, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It worked because they were able to get Anthony Davis away from the basket. But when you're in the West, you got all these teams with bigs. Even with Nurkic puts pressure on you on the offensive end, even if he's not a big defender. If you're just relying on Looney, eventually you're gonna struggle defending the paint. And right now they're giving up like 114 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing well defensively.
Could this be Chris Paul, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green? Those guys are all hitting their mid-30s soon, or are.
And Chris Paul's 38.
Could they just be bored right now? Isn't there a chance that they're just bored and the West has got so many good teams or like playoff contending teams that, yeah, it looks bad now, but in like a month, maybe it won't look as bad. And maybe as we get closer to playoff time, things will get better. I'm still not picking them. Like I said, we did contenders on my channel. Like, I don't have them as a contender, but top 6 team in the West, talent wise, maybe they're in the play-in, who knows? But I just think like a lot of this is boredom for them. They clearly don't care about the in-season tournament or any of that stuff. So what do you think about that?
I think that's very possible, especially when that trio, Steph, Klay, and Draymond, they have done so much winning the past decade right now that you're kind of at a point where like they're playing, they're like the philosophy is the same. We're playing, we're going through the regular season. I think Kerr has something to do with it too, which some Warriors fans are ready to fire him. But when you got that and you don't have a supremely talented team, it doesn't look good. So are they going to change their, style, like how they go through the regular season? I don't think so. But when we get to the spring and things get a little closer and the games start to mean a little more, will they kind of put it in gear and kind of figure some things out? That's very possible. It's hard to count out the Warriors because of what we've seen. And you mentioned in 2022, I did not expect them to win that finals either. I didn't think they were going to the finals, and they were able to do it. They're going to need something, though, because the roster as it is just not good enough, especially with Klay playing this way.
I think this is a make or break year for them. I think last year was, you could have made the excuse about the Jordan Poole thing. They also showed a moment for Sacramento. It's like, hey, we're still the Warriors. The Lakers went to the conference finals. They competed in that series. They went to 6 games. So you're like, okay, the Jordan Poole thing, whatever. We'll go back. We'll fresh. We'll trade Jordan Poole. We'll get things going back, and we'll be the Warriors again. And this year, they haven't been the Warriors again. So maybe this is the year where it's like, okay, if things really turn into a disaster, like let's say it just keeps going this way, and they're not even a playoff team, and they're not even a playing team. Like let's just say they miss the postseason. Like let's say if Steph goes down, which is very possible with his history, they're screwed. So maybe this is it for them. Now, we've said this many times in the past, but even when Steph was injured versus, the first year after KD, I never got the sense that it was over necessarily. I just saw as like, they need Clay to come back. They need Curry back, develop some of these young guys, and maybe that'll help. So I never said they were out necessarily, like, oh, they're done completely, or they were too young. But now they're hitting, like, isn't Curry 35?
Yeah.
Or close to that, like, or maybe
Yeah.
36. Yeah, around that.
He's 35, I think.
35 years old. So, like, maybe this is it. Like, this could be it. And then maybe is Curry a lifetime Warrior? I mean, I'd like to see it, but who knows?
I think he is. Out of the three, he definitely is. I think Clay,
Yeah.
I could definitely see end up playing somewhere else.
Yeah. Clay could be
Draymond,
gone.
Draymond is weird. I don't know if
Yeah.
if any other team would want to deal with his stuff. The Warriors have been winning, so they've
And
put up
here's
with
the problem with trading Draymond Green. It's like he is really valuable to that team. Like, as much as we make fun of like how much he could be like a dirtbag, like he could, and I'm sure he's a really nice guy off the court, but like sometimes you hear him and you're just like, dude, like we get it. You're a really smart basketball player. You're very valuable, but like, can you just like tone it down a bit? Like, God, like now you're just acting like a jerk. Like these Jordan Poole comments, he keeps talking about it. Jordan Poole hasn't said peep over in Washington. Just let it go.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, when you like look at their dynasty. Like a lot of people, KD leaves, Curry and Clay miss Clay missed the entire next season. Curry missed most
Next
of
two
it.
seasons, Clay missed the next
Yeah,
two seasons, right?
yeah, you're right. I think most people kind of saw it as all right. That's kind of it. Even if they come back, they're not the same, especially with KD leaving. And then they win in 2022, and everyone's like, oh, they can still do it.
Yeah.
And
there was
now,
still that hope. There was still that hope that like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe if they came back into themselves, they'll be good again. With a new person like Wiggins in there who can at least give you 20, But now I don't know where that hope is.
to move now to another Western Conference team, one that's kind of turning some heads, Minnesota, 15-4 on the season, #1 in the West, #1 defense in the league. They've been really, really good on all facets of the game. Rudy Gobert, we know defensive player of the year 3 times, and he's on his way maybe to a 4th one, which is gonna bring up some uncomfortable conversations when we talk about Rudy Gobert, because 4 defensive player of the years, I think Ben Wallace is the only other one with 4. Dikembe may have 4, but that puts him in elite defensive company. And we've never really viewed him as like a Hall of Fame type player, but if you have that resume, it definitely puts you in that conversation. Anthony Edwards is on his way to superstardom. He's on the cusp of it for sure. And then Cat thriving as a second man on that team. So in the West, if we look at Minnesota, do we take them seriously? Is this a team that can contend for a title?
I think what's really important is just how good the defense has been, because Chris Finch is an offensive-minded coach, and the Timberwolves are kind of like the last 2 years been mainly known for offense. Like that year where they were the 7th spot and they had like Malik Beasley and like guys like that, and they were run and gun Russell, right? They were run and gun, and they were really killing you offensively. Karl Anthony Towns. Now they're the #1 defense, and they still have good offensive talent. That's the difference between 7th seed playing spunky team, which is what they were, to best team in the Western Conference so far. That's how big of a jump that could take you. And you got to give Rudy Gobert credit. You got to give Tim Connolly just a little bit of credit, because yes, we believe that he gave up too much in that trade, but he obviously had a vision of Gobert being this really difference-making center defensively. We still got to see it in the postseason, but like I said it in the pod that we did, he wasn't really surrounded by great perimeter defenders in Utah. He has that in Minnesota because Edwards, I think a lot of people see like, oh, he's not really a defender. He can defend. Like he can buckle down and guard you. He's big. He's long. Like he's not only this explosive scorer defensively, he can really do some things for you. So you got a smart point guard at Conley who makes Gobert happy, right? So we put that all together, and what do you need? You need a top 10 superstar, right? You need a top 10 player in the NBA. I think Ant has that potential, and he's only kind of scratched the surface. Minnesota could be good for a long time here. And I just didn't see that before. Like I picked them to be good this year, but I didn't know if I'd see this great of a start because it seemed like, all right, they're going to break up this Gobert Towns thing. Maybe this is just a rebuild that they just bet on it too early. But they look like they could be good for some time. Now, obviously, Conley's older. Gobert is not young or anything. He's not young. All right, Towns is still young. Edwards is young. I think those that matter. But they're good this year, and I think you have to consider them as a contender. They've looked like the best team in the West, and they play well against Denver.
Yeah, I mean, look at the West. You see Minnesota, Oklahoma City as the number 1 and 2 seeds.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my Western Conference predictions, I had them like right outside the play-in. So for them to have taken this big of a jump is like, it blew me away. I was like, wow, Minnesota for real. And we've seen some teams start hot and, they kind of taper off. Like Utah last season started hot.
Portland.
Like, oh, Laurie Markkinen and stuff. And I think, they didn't want to win like that. So they ended up falling down and, they went back to be what they
look at like Portland last year. They wanted to try and win and compete to keep Dame there. At least that's what they say. And they were like, I think they started off like 11-4 or something, and they were like 1. And so, but to be fair, 15-4, beating good teams. They have the talent, like it's there. And if something happens to Towns, I think they could still win. Edwards, I don't know, but Towns is still good. Maybe he takes the late shots. Who knows? Gobert going down will hurt them defensively, but maybe they can keep that up with Towns there. Yourself, Naz Reid, they have good size there. So, yeah, I think it's legit.
Yeah, you mentioned Mike Conley. I think that was very key. I think with D'Angelo Russell, you kind of had D'Angelo Russell is kind of like you mentioned, a running gun, a lot of style to his game, and I think that was kind of what the team was looked at. They all kind of you got Cat, he plays with style. He's a finesse player, and that at that point they had him as their number 1 guy. You now have him as your number 2. You have Edwards, who takes this very seriously. He's people compare him to Jordan, that he has the mannerisms and the kind of the attitude. He thrives as that number 1 guy going at guys. He has the personality for that, where Cat kind of did it. And you mentioned that Cat is like a luxury on this team. And I think that helps them so much that you have someone that can score, go off offensively. You don't need him to be stellar defensively. You're not playing him at center. You don't have all this responsibility on him. And I think that helps Cat because you got Gobert who can do it all. Yeah. And they have the other defensive players that can help.
Ryan Russillo is a guy I really respect, his NBA opinion. He has a great thing about D'Angelo Russell. It's like he does all the hard stuff very, very well, but the easy stuff he does horribly. And Mike Conley is kind of the pure opposite of that. Like, yeah, he's not going to do sometimes the insane no-look passes to you, but he'll get the job done in the pick and roll. He'll make the simple pass really, really well. He'll hit the simple floater, right? Russell will hit the contested 3. Conley will take the right shot, find the open teammate. And I think Timberwolves fans had this frustrating relationship with D'Angelo Russell. He was awesome in Brooklyn, loved him in Brooklyn, but it was 2 months of D'Angelo Russell being an all-star. That's what it was. That's how he got that all-star nod, and he didn't even make it full on. Oladipo got hurt, and that's how he got in. So I love the guy. I've always rooted for him, but there's a reason why he's been on as many teams as he has in the last few years. He does the simple stuff poorly. and Mike Conley doesn't. So that was important for them to get back into the fold. He just needed a smart ball handler and one guy that was going to make people happy and know what's going on, know the point in the game. And I like Mike Conley. I've always liked him.
Yeah, the Lakers are already priming maybe to move D'Angelo Russell as it is. So,
Exactly.
That's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
I think guys in Minnesota bringing off their bench also big key. You mentioned Naz Reid, who he was kind of their big like off-season signing. They wanted to make sure to bring him back. He's been so good. He's their fourth leading scorer actually, and he's been solid coming off the bench. He's a shooter, but he's also can handle the ball, can pass, and can be an inside post threat. Also, Kyle Anderson moves in slow motion. He's been great everywhere he's been, whether it was in San Antonio, Memphis, now in Minnesota.
Jersey guy, Kyle Anderson. Love Jersey.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Kyle Anderson. Yeah. He IYB basketball trained with Ken Kaluko, who I know. Hey, cool dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ken Kaluko if he watches this. I don't know if he does, but shout out to Kyle Anderson.
Yeah.
Jersey guy.
Ultimate glue guy. I mean, those are key for, winning basketball clubs, teams that, do well in the playoffs. You need guys that can come in and just give you anything that you need at that particular moment. And they've also gotten some good production out of, Shake Milton and Troy Brown Jr., who was on the Lakers last year. They just have it all. It seems like everything that you need. And if it looks like if they can continue this, you mentioned they play Denver really well. They blew out Denver earlier this season. Denver, they don't have many teams that can really match up with them well. And I think Minnesota can, especially with Gobert. And that would be an interesting playoff series to see again.
Yeah.
Who knows? It may go differently this time.
Could be in the conference finals. Who knows? If that Rudy Gobert is 3 firsts instead of 5 firsts, I think we look at Tim Connolly a little different, but because he helped build that Denver thing. But I just think Gobert has been a great fit, and this was a make or break kind of for him because he punched Kyle Anderson last year. They seem to have right. They've seemed to have kind of mend that a little bit, and that's great. And I think it's great that Minnesota's good. They've kind of been a disaster in the 21st century for as long as they've been a franchise. They blew their opportunity with KG. They drafted like 8 point guards before Steph Curry. They drafted Johnny Flynn, Ricky Rubio, and man, that was bad. I thought
imagine having
didn't they take Ty Lawson too, and then they traded Ty Lawson. I forget. But they took a ton of point guards before they took 2 specifically before Steph Curry, which is nuts.
Imagine having 2 chances.
So like as much as Knicks fans, they got Jordan Hill, they were 1 pick away from getting Steph. The Timberwolves could have drafted him twice and didn't. Yeah. And and they had Kevin Love, didn't work out with Kevin Love. So I'm happy because I like seeing franchises that haven't really had success now maybe have started to build something really real. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on? I saw, there's the media has people say that they have a big market bias, and that they feel like Edwards could be a star of the league, could be a face of the league, but he's playing for Minnesota. Like, do you think does that matter? If they're winning like this, should that matter?
Doesn't matter at all. I think that's very lame. I think it's dumb. We like when the Lakers are good. We like when the Knicks are good. We like when Miami's good. We like when these teams are good. We get Golden State. What was Golden State before Steph? Seriously, what was Golden State before Steph? I don't remember Golden State being this big market franchise that everybody wanted to play. No, Steph is the reason why that and them winning. That's the reason. Kevin Garnett was popular in Minnesota before, he left and went to Boston. Boston's great. He's one of the great franchises of all time. KD was popular in OKC. So I think it's just your talent, and your talent follows you. LeBron in Cleveland. So I don't think it matters at all. I think that's a ridiculous thing, honestly. I think that's what it is. I think that's just all I have to say about it.
Well, I'd like to thank you for joining us once again on True Shoes Podcast. The JB podcast, all the information will be in the description. Check out his latest episode, which I am on. We talk about the contenders in the NBA. Thanks, James, for coming on. Always like to have you back. Be sure to like, share, subscribe to the channel and the video if you haven't already. I've been Dan Aquino. We'll see you next time on True Shoops.